Hello, everybody. Welcome to podcast number 53 of the Alexei podcast. And this is part 2 of our lengthy interview with Lee Mack. Now, it gets quite granular, I think. It gets quite into the kind of weeds of the professional business of being a comedian. But I think that it's none the worse for that. I think that that's what podcasts are for, in a sense, is this long form is to, if you're interested in comedy, then you're listening to somebody, somebody who's really, a huge star, but talking very simply and analytically about how he's got to that point. Somebody who's got both a hit sitcom, a hit Saturday night quiz show, and a hit comedy panel show. And it's while managing to remain a relatively normal person, which is, which of those things is probably the most massive achievement of all, really. So, I mean, have you got anything to say about to add?
Well, no, he's nailed every aspect of the comedy path of the big star, really. And
yeah, I think if you're a student of, studying comedy or, whatever,
like how to do it in
an amateur, then there's a tremendous amount to be derived from his professionalism, really, and from his working method, I think, which is
he's done it in a genuine way, and he's never. I can't think of say what you want about Lee Mack, but I don't think he's ever been a bastard.
No. I think that's unlikely to
There's
be anybody.
Other comics at his level who have all sorts of scandal, and Lee Mack's not one of them, man.
No,
just a lovely family man who's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. So let's get on with it. Lee Mack part 2. What were you doing on telly then? Because I remember
I was starting to do what I really wanted to do, which was be on the circuit.
Right.
Crack that circuit, because even though I'm telling you before I did 4 gigs on a Saturday night, that's not how it started out. I was doing 4 gigs in 3 months or 4 months to begin with, because it's hard being an open spot. You have to push yourself, ring up, and can I have another gig? But I got fortunate in that it was still, in comparison to what it became, smaller. There was every comedian knew each other.
Right.
That has gone. There's every comedian's on different genres now, or different mediums. Some are on YouTube, some are on telly, some are on circuit. Within the circuit, there's probably different circuits. There's Edinburgh. It's so broken up. There's so many now, But back then, I was just trying to do my bit on this. And that's all I wanted, to be a circuit comic. And a couple of years in from doing that, I just got offered. I was doing Edinburgh as well, but Edinburgh for me was about, I don't know what it was about really. I suppose it was, it was about doing competitions really. I was new enough that I was going to Edinburgh to enter competitions and be, there's a show called So You Think You're Funny. There was a BBC Comedy Awards. I was doing the early versions of them, That's why I went up to Edinburgh. And then I just got offered this show on Channel 4 where I was the host, called Gas, and it was in the late 90s, and I'm supposed to host these new comics, even though I hadn't even doing it 2 years. I was so scared. I was like, I can't do that. I am a new comic, and I'm hosting other new comics.
Right.
But people, I think it was Peter Kay's first telly show, and I introduced him, and the Mighty Boosh came on. Not as the Mighty Boosh, they were individual stand-ups back then. Noel and Julian were on it. Tommy Tiernan came on it. So looking back, it did introduce, new acts that then went on to much bigger things. But I wasn't ready for it. I really wasn't. In fact, I did it the wrong way around. What that did was help me get established on the circuit. Because not everyone knew who I was on the circuit. I'd been doing it 2 years. But I think it got my foot in the door in some of the clubs in London. Like, well, I suppose we might book him. He's been on the telly.
Yeah.
I still knew I wasn't ready for it. I look back at that show and I realised I really wasn't ready for it. I just didn't have the I only had a 15-minute act, or 20-minute act, just about had a 20-minute act.
Right. So what did you do for material?
Well, all they did was they said, we've got a writer that can help me called Dominic Holland. You know Dominic? He's a circuit comic.
Yeah.
Was at the time.
Yeah. It's just
done lots of.
And his son, of course, is Spider-Man. Yeah.
We thought he was Spider-Man's dad.
Yeah.
He's a great comic, and he's written books, and he's got quite a mix of things he does, But he was very much what I wanted to be. He was a regular Comedy Store John Willis act.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. And here he is having to write for the new lad,
Ha ha ha.
And he made it very clear. And I'm a good mates of Dom, and I really love him to mates. And he just made it clear. I didn't know him at the time. I walked in and he said, I'm just going to make it clear to you, I'm doing this for the money. He says, I don't really know what you do, So I gave him a VHS tape of me playing some gig in Bristol, I think. I'd recorded on a big fat camera that I think I'd got from the uni. And I gave it to him. He says, right, well, I'll go and watch that and see what you do. Terrified all night. I said to him, before phones, he couldn't text me or anything,
Yeah.
I didn't even know him. I said to my missus, what's he going to think? I come in the next day for the writers' meeting. I went, you seen it? He goes, yeah. Oh, what do you think? And I remember him just going, got quite a lot of work on with it. And he was right. If I'd had a 15-minute act, of which maybe half of it was usable on the telly, the rest wouldn't work in a 3-minute section or a 2-minute section.
Right.
We just got to work. He wrote me material with me. I did a lot of my own writing, but he helped me a bit. We got through a series, and I looked back and realised I was cutting my teeth, and it was...
Yeah, I mean,
I did my best,
Yeah, I mean, that's what the game is. Nobody appears fully formed, do they? I mean, it's really like...
It was too early to go on telly, though.
Yeah. But that's... I mean, in a way, that's even that...
But how long had you been doing it? When you were like, I don't know, in the young ones, how long had you been a comic? I suppose you couldn't have been longer
2 years.
2 years, because you were starting off... When you started off, was that...
Comedy Store was 79.
What were you doing before 79?
I was like washing dishes and shit like that.
The 79 was the first.
No, I'm being slightly. I was in like a theatre group.
Right. So you had performed. But But you hadn't done stand up.
Not as such. Not what you'd call stand up. It was just me and this other guy did a kind of sketch. No, I invented it.
Yeah. So
everybody owes me a fucking royalty.
This is why I'm doing this for free.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't realise that turned up. It was for free, but I'll tell you. No, but it is true,
Yeah. We were a sketch act, and I would step out of the sketches and do bits. But it wasn't. Nobody understood what it was.
But it's interesting, isn't it? How you can. Like when I think of you in the young ones doing stand up, that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
You came on as this East European landlord, and then just suddenly turn and change accents and then do this voice and go, oh, he's like a stand up now. Then no one questioned it, but of course that's what perhaps you've done in the things pre-so.
Really, we did. Yeah. Well, I did. Well, I mean, I did 79 was the comedy Store lasted from 79 to 80. And then 80 to 81 was the comic strip club, which was me and Rick and Abe and Dawn and Jennifer and Peter and Nigel.
And where was that?
That was in Raymond's Review Bar.
So that was nothing to do with the Comedy Store.
No, it was in a different strip club.
Oh right.
Also in Soho, because Peter felt it was important that it was in a strip club as well.
Did he?
Yeah, just to have that kind of vibe, Yeah, no, the original Comedy Store was also was a strip club.
Yeah.
A topless bar.
It's weird, isn't it? It's such a weird.
It's hard to.
It's supposed to be just getting rid of all the old school sexism. And we're going to do it in a strip club.
Yeah, and we didn't see anything the least bit.
No, but you need that atmosphere as well for that.
We felt that we needed that sleazy atmosphere. Yeah. So that was 80 to 81. Then we went on the road. We went to Australia in 82. And then we made the young ones. We'd made the pilot before we went to Australia. And then we made the rest of the young ones in 82. I mean, ridiculously short time span, really. Yeah. But we were so confident, I think.
Yeah, but also just like now, if you did the young ones now, you know that, 500,000 people would see.
Yeah.
Television is so broken up
And it was 5 or 6 million.
I mean, that's huge, right?
Yeah,
that must be hard to handle.
But also because I'd also done this other late night show called OTT.
Oh, yeah. With Chris Tarrant.
Yeah, Lenny Henry.
Yeah, of course.
I'd done that from 82. I'd done that from January to March 82, and then we went to Australia with the comic strip. But I was already playing 1,000 Seaters so that'd be a year, 2 years after I'd started become a comic. So I was already playing 1,000 Seaters, 2,000 Seaters.
It's interesting, isn't it, how different our worlds were, because you did 2 years, you're on the telly, you're playing 1,000 Seaters.
Yeah.
I did 2 years, did my Channel 4 show, Gas, and said to my missus, and this wasn't ego, this was practicality, I thought. We sat outside this restaurant when I got the call on the first ever version of a mobile phone saying, "You've got this Channel 4 show." And I remember saying to her, "Wow, we might not be able to do this sitting outside a restaurant." And that wasn't, honestly, I didn't feel egotistical. I felt it was a practical thing to say to her.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on the telly, right? And that's going to have an effect on our lives, Cut to me, probably 3 months after that, the television show had been made and broadcast very quickly. Doing my first solo stand-up show at Edinburgh, booked in because I thought, well, I'll have no problem selling this. I've been on Channel 4 now. Opening night, 4 people turned up.
Really?
And it didn't get much better for the run. That being on the telly then suddenly counted for very little in terms of selling tickets. Yeah. And that was probably the difference between being in the early 80s and the early 90s.
Yeah.
Because suddenly there was a lot more happening. There were millions of comedians at Edinburgh.
Because I mean, once OTT went out, I couldn't go into the central Liverpool, for instance. I never went into the central Liverpool again for like 20 years because it was
hard to handle, right? I guess.
It was complicated. It was because
everything you wanted, everything you hated.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, more one. I loved being famous. I thought it was because I was such a weirdo that I just loved being famous. But yeah, that thing you had to watch yourself. There's somewhere like Liverpool, you had to if you couldn't go into the centre because it would get very dodgy very quickly, really. Yeah, and that was just something you accepted. But it was I guess in retrospect it was kind of fucked up, But just the way it was.
But also, I guess not part of the plan as well. In terms of it can't be a plan because it happened that quickly. 2 years you're playing 1,000 Seaters, and it's. From your first gig, having that kind of attention, there's not been much training, right? At least mine's been quite slow.
Yeah.
So I remember the first time it started happening to me and feeling weird about it, but you don't know what to do. Like my version of that is when I would always be with my girlfriend in a shop and not be recognised.
Yeah.
And she'd just go over there and pay for something or go and have a look at a dress, and then I'd be recognised. Because you're on your own now, and he's on his own. I can talk to him now, and they'd go away, and she'd come back over. I go, I should be recognised. Yeah, this would happen a few times, and she'd go, I think you're being a bit delusional. I go, honestly, it was always when she would walk away that they would talk to her. So there's this weird thing when she started going, "Are you making this?" Like, I swear to God, come here! You just put it front to me, didn't you? It was this really weird,
Right.
And I remember jamming with even when I had children. We've got 20-year-old now, but at the time he was, when I started doing a bit more telly, he was very young, and I remember going to the London Aquarium with him, and for the first time, quite a bit of recognition.
Yeah.
And me handling it by saying, instead of just going, because Daddy's on the telly, I said this weird thing where I said to him, I look like a very famous fish person, an expert in fish, and that person thought I was that person.
Right.
I made up a lie.
Right.
Rather than, I'm on a telly show and they've recognised me on a telly show, I pretended it's because they thought I was somebody who was famous.
And this is something he shares with his therapist now.
You know what? You look like a famous fish. Yeah, some sort of expert in fish, and he thought I was them. And I remember after saying, my missus, what did I have to say? I'm on the telly? Because he didn't know. He didn't watch my stuff. I don't even remember what it was now, but I wasn't used to it, put it that way. I didn't thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny enough, I remember being in Liverpool with Lenny Henry, and we were in a pub, I don't know whether we were doing anything together. And this was quite early because Lenny because Lenny was.
Well, he was from the old school as well.
He was old school, but also people thought he was their mate. Nobody thought I was their mate.
Right.
So that was a big. So people were like really comfortable and really touching him, really in a very intimate way. And I thought, this is horrible.
Because you were hilarious and scary.
Yeah, exactly.
He was hilarious and cuddling.
Yeah.
You know, that was the difference.
Yeah.
And I suppose they thought better not mess with him, but
exactly,
give us a good cuddle.
Yeah. And it was
there's a reason you're not advertising Premier Wins anyway.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You go, I want to be a warm bed like Lenny Henry for that home. It's fully... Maybe it's just accents. You know, he's got a brummy accent.
No, and it's his material and his personality. You know, nobody's going to be what I want to be in a premiere and being screamed at about genocide. They're not going to say.
It's not good for the brand, is it?
It's not going to say, we want a piece of that.
They're all about the low lighting and the warmth.
Yeah. Although I did do voiceovers for many years, but we won't get into that. But so
that's that thing, isn't it? You do what you find funny, and you don't know who's going to...
Yeah.
It's just that bit's in other people's hands, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I very much valued that I wasn't him, really. It seemed
Well, it's interesting when you say you did voiceovers, right? And what you definitely didn't do, I assume, was I better change my act a bit so I can start getting voiceovers. No. It's just that for whatever reason, society changed, and they went, that's a bit good, that's the perfect thing for that brand, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's out of your hands, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I never appeared in an advert because I thought that's where I drew the line. But I did all kinds of products and
I'm trying to remember. I'll know as soon as you
Toasties. Wild Bean Cafe at BP Connect. Great food on the go.
Okay, I know you said
yeah.
Flashback. I don't know what Toasties are.
They were a sock, but with a kind of like a kind of dimpled thing on the sole, so you didn't slip.
I thought you meant cheese toast.
No.
Oh,
No. It was a
kind
kind of sock.
Like socks.
Yeah, the Dremel Multi. Do you remember that?
Is that
it was like a kind of drill.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay.
I make a lot of money, but I never stopped screaming about. It never made me think once I won't get this work if I don't stop screaming
but isn't that thing about
class difference?
The thing on the fringe or the punk or the thing becomes into the mainstream. You know, like I always think about. I don't know. It's weird. We talked with this recently about Tiswas and Swap Shop. Now, if you ask anyone of my generation, did you prefer Tiswas or Swap Shop? They'll all tell you Tiswas because it was anarchic. It was you were the crazy kid, if you like. But the viewing figures don't add up to that. The viewing figures should be that most of them were telling the truth were watching Swap Shop. Because the viewing figures were much bigger for Swap Shop than Tiswas.
Well, Tiswas was only going out in the Midlands initially.
Was it? I didn't know. Yeah.
Because I worked with those guys.
But we like to believe that we were all part of the revolution. You were, but a lot of people think they were.
Yeah.
They weren't really. They were watching it.
Yeah.
The difference between a punk dressing up in the street and getting on stage is, or actually, no, punks are a bit unfair. They were really on the fringes back in the 70s. But we all like to think we were a bit more anarchic than we were. But you can at least say we were because you were.
I absolutely was.
But then that suddenly bleeds into the bit where people go, "We'll have a bit of that. Could you do the voiceover for Toasties?" That's not what I'd have thought they'd have thought when they watched it.
But that was the sort of weird thing. I mean, I've reflected on that now because I don't know whether... Because I thought of myself in a way as being just in show business, really, even though I was yelling and screaming, calling. Yeah. I mean, I was on stage and calling Princess Diana a cockroach. But at the same time, I just thought, well, I'm also in show business in a way where somebody like Stuart Lee, for instance, has stayed completely. Stuart would never do a voiceover. Stuart has stayed. I don't know whether that's I think in a weird sort of way, it was, and I still don't understand it to a degree myself now. But that you could be. I mean, I never diluted my act at all. You know, no. It was always absolutely at the edge, both in terms of the language I used and the ideas I was expressed. But I was still accepted into the kind of showbiz firmament.
Telly, weren't you?
I was on the telly.
You were on the telly.
Yeah.
That you Yeah, no,
and in the end, I got as far as I could go, and then I wouldn't. There was a kind of limit to how accepted I would be, you know.
But it's interesting, like stuff like, I remember saying this to you last time, that, you know, there are certain comedians that are still catchphrases in our act. So something they'll do, it can be someone that you won't have even heard of, but he saw someone one night.
Yeah.
You know, we saw a comedian once, can't remember his name, but he held up a big plastic red bus in his act, and it was clearly a piece of shit, and in a very strong Australian accent, because he was playing a tourist.
Right.
I mean, look at the quality on that. Right? And it really made me look.
Yeah.
And it's still now, all these years later, a catchphrase in our hands.
Right,
where if we're taking the piss, we'll go, look at the quality on that, right? And likewise, your warm-up man
Probably Cherries.
is still I still laugh when I think, after the years of seeing it, you are still a catchphrase of, I'm on pins for my knees.
Yeah.
So in our house, if I drop a spoon on the floor because I fumbled, I'll go, I'm on pins for my knees. And it just makes us laugh. It doesn't even make us laugh.
Yeah.
I would say I've said it more than you've ever said. Because I've been saying it for 30 years, almost daily.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but when I think about that, and think about you doing that warm-up, man, it is absolutely one of the greatest pieces of comedy I've ever said. But doing that warm-up, man, who's just not equipped to do that, is obviously from your love or your experience of doing those shows, and probably respecting those guys. And I was one of those guys for a while, and it's bloody hard. But you can't do that joke unless you've lived that experience and that truth.
No, it was from seeing them, going to recordings and seeing them, you know.
You really see someone having a breakdown like that?
Yeah, it was the one who played the jockey in Heidi High, Felix.
He was.
Not Felix.
I know exactly. Yeah. Felix. No, I know you mean.
But anyway, so I went to see him. Yeah, and he was. Yeah, I went to see a recording of Three of a Kind with Bizarre, Lenny Henry, Tracy Ullman, and David Copperfield.
Not the magician.
Not the magician, the other one. And they had something like, there was a power cut or something, like a massive power cut that went on for 45 minutes. And he wasn't, you know, he was old school, and he was a bit like, you know, he was not great anyway, but he had to fill for 45 minutes. I remember him saying at one point, he said to one of them, he said, "Do you want to see my watch?" It's really good watch. And he was getting photos of his fucking grandchildren out and showing them around.
Did he run out of stuff?
Yeah, he'd run out of stuff after about 5 minutes.
I did it, and this has been on Wood I'll actually, because it's a true story. But I was the warm-up man on a program called Pet Power with Anthea Turner, and they'd have a little, I've talked on it, could do some amusing or whatever. She was sat on the sofa with his budgie. Now, I'd already done my bit at the beginning, and they said to me, once you've done your bit, you should be all right. I only picked those gigs because I didn't have enough material.
Right.
I did my bit at the beginning, please not Anthea, and then I'd sort of try and keep out of the way as much as possible, because it was one of those shows that seemed to go all the way through. Anyway, it hadn't gone well this night. I'd been on 3 or 4 times more than I thought I needed.
Because technical breakdowns.
But I've got nothing left. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm thinking, please don't let anything go wrong. I sneak off to my room to use the loo a lot. I put the telly on, which shows what's going on the studio floor, and they're all looking up into the rafters, and all the budgie. There's a budgie who's come on to do something, and he's flown up into the rafters. And Anthony's standing up.
Yeah,
the show's not happening.
Yeah, and
I can hear people getting the warm on, and I don't know what to do. So I hid in my cupboard in the dressing room.
No.
Knock on the door. I don't answer. Knock on the door, and I hear someone coming. Lee, and go back out again. And I didn't get out of the cupboard. And then eventually I wandered down to the floor, and it started again, the show. And somebody goes, "Where were you?" And I go, "Do you mean I'm laying stubby the whole time?" Really styled it out, and just pretended I'd been stood at maybe the wrong side of the set. Just completely stand up. I was just watching all that, and I ain't bastard. No, I know. I was so scared and nervous. I didn't go back on again. So I've hidden from Anthea Turner in a cupboard. But I thought, if I get sacked, I get sacked. I never want to do this again anyway. But I did quite a bit of warm-up. Not a lot, but a bit enough to know that your character is so what I would have become.
Well, it's either on the way up or on the way down, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah, absolutely. And that's,
because Mark Lamar used to do it. Did he? Won't remember him now, but very combative comic. He used to do it at Joyce. He used to really like it.
Well, some people do. I think it really. God, if you can do that, you can do anything. So you really toughen up doing it. You know?
Yeah.
You know.
So anyway, moving. Yeah. How long have we been going? An hour and a half.
I'm not.
Yeah. No. It's fine. We might make it into a two-parter. So you're doing you've done gas.
Well, I've done gas. That is, but again, don't forget. All I want in my life is to be a circuit comic. And
would you drive? Which sort of car did you have then? Did you drive between gigs?
Girlfriend.
Oh, you had the moped.
I had the moped for London.
Yeah.
But my girlfriend had been given by her dad a VW Polo. Oh no, tell a lie. We had Ford Fiesta. Oh, maybe that was before I was a stand-up. We paid 150 quid on the Ford Fiesta. I remember that. But now we have my father-in-law's Polo, the VW Polo. So that was, but because I was a driver. Sometimes you get paid a bit extra.
Right.
If an out-of-town gig, if you were the driver, you get paid an extra 30, 40 quid. But you'd have to drive all the comics there and drive.
So it'd be you, Jack D.
Jack D was before.
That was here
sort of
previous.
Leading the circuit as I was starting it. Maybe Graham Norton did his last few gigs as I was starting to get his own chat show and stuff.
Right.
So that we know them guys.
So it'd be you in the Polo.
Me in the Polo. Adam Bloom.
Adam Bloom
was part of that sort of world I was in.
Catherine Tate.
Catherine was more of even then, she was really dabbling a bit in stand-up when I saw her. I remember seeing her, she was in my Edinburgh show because I saw her do stand-up and she did the voice of an old woman in the act.
Right.
So she'd do it as a stand-up and then go, it's like my nan or my auntie so-and-so used to say, and then turn into this character.
Right.
And she was a good stand-up, but she was a great character.
Yeah.
And I sort of got to know her a bit and said, she takes the piss out of me now for it. We're still good mates, but I'd like to believe that I saw in her the future of Philo. But the real truth is, I knew she was already doing a show up there, so I wouldn't have to pay for her accommodation. So I said, do you want to be in my show as well?
Yeah.
So she was in my show doing my. So I decided. So what I did, my first nightmare thing I just told you about, where 4 people turned up and then 6 the hate, and it was just the worst Edinburgh I've ever had. And I remember standing on stage going, if I ever come back to Edinburgh again, I don't want to be on my own. I want to be able to look to my left and see someone else howling on the roll so we can have a laugh about it.
Right.
It's a very lonely existence being at Edinburgh and not doing great, you know.
Do you know I started all that as well?
Edinburgh?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, obviously I didn't start the Edinburgh Fringe, but me and the guy called Tony Allen.
I know Tony, yeah.
Yeah, died this year. We were the first stand-up comedy, 1980. The Harriet was.
Really?
There'd never been any stand-up comedy before the Edinburgh Festival before me and Tony.
So the Fringe was more about sort of artistic theatre?
It was Samuel Beckett plays.
Right, okay.
Medical students doing sketch comedy.
And I'm guessing that was in the days when the Edinburgh Festival was bigger than the Fringe.
Yeah.
But the Fringe has become much bigger than the Festival. Yeah.
Yes.
Tony Allen, yeah. I when I started, before I was a stand-up, I used to go in the days when there wasn't that many clubs. I'd go get time out and find out where my nearest club was.
Right.
To go and watch. I just wanted to be a stand-up, but I didn't know how to. So I devoured everything.
Right.
And Tony was the...
Well, Tony was OG, yeah. I mean, he started Alternative Cabaret, which was also 1979. Our first gig was at the Pinder and Wakefield. Yeah, he was, yeah. We started it, yeah.
Yeah.
But he came up with the name, and it's called the Waterette now, but it's called the Pinder and Wakefield on Gray's Inn Road.
Right.
That was our first gig.
Really?
In 1979, yeah.
It was on the...
Oh, God, I think it was people... Tony booked them. It was me, Tony, a guy called Bob Flagg, who you'd never have heard of, probably Andy Delatorre.
I remember that name. He was before my time, but I remember...
Francis Delatorre's brother.
Oh, is it?
A guy called Jim Barclay, whose daughter's a comic.
again, I recognise the name.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys that, don't forget, I was starting sort of 50.
Oh, this is a long time before you. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If I'm going to be honest, even Tony was not doing a lot. I remember seeing Tony the first time I ever saw him. He did that, which I thought was very funny. I'd be lying if I said he went down a storm. I remember his last line was, "Thanks very much for reminding me why I don't do this anymore." Which really made me laugh. We were laughing our heads off of that. But again, yet that thing that he symbolised probably what was different between that world and the previous comedians.
Yeah. Oh, he was
just this ball of fire energy, just like.
And he lived the old. You know, he was he'd been a squasser, and you know he absolutely lived the alternative lifestyle. You know, he wasn't.
I suppose that's the key thing, isn't it? Really, there was a lot of. I mean, even obviously, I was the generation after you, but I always talk about the fact that when I was starting out doing open spots in the early 90s, you would still get the nutters, you know, in a really good way. So you'd be on with somebody that was a bit polished.
Talent.
Then the next act would be just, it was, I don't know, you just felt there was a borderline mental health issues going.
Yeah.
And then there'd be another act that was, had been said, so I've been doing this for 10 years and I just do it. One of them said to me, I just do it because I need to get out of the house. You know?
Yeah.
And you just get these oddballs.
Yeah.
I remember one guy turned up with a bowl of porridge, shouting, "I'm Jesus," and just throwing it at the audience. And so proper lunacy that you just don't see anymore because it became more polished, it became more professional, it became more, I suppose, less like everything in the arts, just about, it wasn't a question of succeeding, it was, the goal was to not fail. So it became more beige.
Right.
As long as you don't fail, you've succeeded. Yeah. So everything became a bit safer, you know, because it became more professional until you wanted to get the book, you wanted to earn the money. The guy throwing the porridge wasn't getting paid. He was never getting paid. What did he care?
Yeah.
He was not getting rebooked.
Yeah.
He was doing it for other reasons.
Yeah.
And there was pros and cons about that for me.
But that's just I mean, as an industry matures, that's going to happen, isn't it?
As soon as the money gets into it, and you know.
Yeah, I've never railed against that. So you've had your formative fails.
So I've had my little failings. I've looked up. I'm looking to my left, and I'm going to see someone stood next to me, whatever that means.
Right.
I meet Catherine Tate on the circuit. I go, do you know what? I'll do a sketch show, because if you do sketches, then you're in a team on stage, and they can still do loads of gags. It's very gag-driven, like stand-up for me, for my type of stand-up. So that's what I'll do. So I went back to Edinburgh, following you with Catherine and a guy called Dan Antopolsky, who I'd also found out had accommodation already booked, so I wouldn't have to pay him for his accommodation either. And don't forget the TV shows failed at this point. Save the money. And so I did 2 years of sketches with Catherine and Dan, and then within that sketch show, I'd have a one-liner in my head. So, for example, the one that always springs to mind is, if you're looking out the window of the telescope, and your wife walks in and suddenly you raise it up to the moon. What are you looking at? Nothing, just look at the moon. Just a little idea. You go, well, that's not a sketch. It's not a lights up, do it and blackout.
Yeah.
It's just a mildly amusing moment.
Yeah.
So I had about 50 of them. So what can we do with them? I know, I'll put them all together in like a flat situation.
Right.
So it's basically the dumping ground for everything else where it doesn't fit in as a sketch, a standalone sketch. And it grew into this sort of 15-minute sketch set in a flat. And it became like the main, I suppose, the best bit of the show. And we got nominated for a Perrier Award, and it was a successful year for us. And they basically took all those sketches and turned them into a show on ITV called The Sketch Show, imaginatively titled The Sketch Show, which you may not remember, a lot of people don't remember.
I don't.
But it was me, Tim Vine, Jim Taveray, Ronnie Ancona, and Karen Taylor. And they basically used a lot of those sketches that I did at Edinburgh and turned them into another telly show.
Okay.
But I didn't give them that flat sketch, because I thought if I do a sitcom one day, that would make a sitcom.
Right.
So I sort of shelved that, and then did spent 2 years doing this ITV sketch show, which was a good lesson in these award ceremonies, because we won a BAFTA, but it's the only, until recently, it's the only BAFTA I'd ever been part of. The show that won. It's the only BAFTA I won for being a show that I've been a part of. but it's also the only show that had been pulled mid-run the following series.
Right.
It shows you the sort of nonsense of these things, you know.
Hello, we're just interrupting your fun to ask for money, basically. We need Patreon to keep this going. You're getting this for nothing, so fucking give us some money, basically, at
patreon.com/alexeisaylepodcast.
Ta. Very early on in my career, I won 2 awards. One was the Pi Radio Awards, when it was still made. British manufacturer radios became the Sony's later on. The Sony Awards. PY. It was a brand
it was a brand, yes, of course,
of radio, yeah. And also I won some advertising award. But in both, the kind of chairman of the awards jury said, before he gave the awards, he said, well, it's been a very poor year. So, it's been a very, we found this a very...
That was engraved on the award.
Yes.
And it's just got worse.
Yeah, it's been a very poor year, but the winner of the best comedy is Alexei.
Oh,
no. Yeah. Anyway, so they pulled this sketch show.
So we did the sketch show for 2 years on ITV, and it was,
so it was ATV though. So what time of night was it?
It was what? Sorry.
What time of night were you on?
We were on. Do you know, I really can't remember. It was a fairly good slot.
Because did that bring you fame?
Not. It's not 85 fame, but I put it one way. No, because the story I talked about being recognised in the aquarium was after my sitcom started. So it was after that. So not really. I mean, yes, a little bit. That sort of like they think they know you, but they don't know where they're from. But not what I would call.
I just have the feeling I saw you on the telly, and I don't know where really.
It was late 90s.
Yeah,
it was the gas show. Sketch show was like 2000, 2001. And then up on the odd panel guy. I was on They Think It's All Over once. And then I was the host of They Think It's All Over in its final year. When Nick Hancock left, I took over for the final.
Right.
Me and Boris Becker were brought on to rebrand it a bit. That lasted a year. No one remembers being on that.
No.
He was much better than me, I think, Nick. I mean, they should have kept with him, I really think that. But they gave me a bash at it. But it's like the last sort of rights for it. Come on, give them, what's the word on it? Give you a bit of electric shock and see it work. Yeah. So I did that. I was appearing on things, and probably because you're into comedy, you might have seen it, whereas the average person in the street wouldn't have necessarily recognised me. I certainly didn't go out with a hat and glasses on in those days. It wasn't that kind of thing. And then around about the same time, 2 shows happened that are now still on, which was Would I Lie to You started in, well, first of all, it was my sitcom Not Going Out.
So tell me about that.
Well, so that was, again... I
mean, that's been going how long?
Oh, like 2006, but I wrote the pilot in 2005.
So it's really interesting to see it because it's on reruns and...
Yeah, well,
so you see it, and it's really evolved, hasn't it?
It's
really interesting in a way.
The evolving has been forced because a lot of the cast have left.
Right.
So Miranda Hart was in it for a while. Tim Vine, who's a very good mate of mine still, he was in it. God, we've had so many cast over the years come and go. But we also jumped ahead in it 7 years, and now we're married with kids. We were just flatmates in it.
Yeah.
So it has evolved in that sense. So basically we were, I was asked to do, they saw the sketch show, I think, and just gave a sort of small, in the way that they give out lots of script commissions. It's a relatively small investment for them.
Just to make a pilot.
Just to want to,
do a script. Who was this? This was the BBC directly, was it?
Well, it was BBC Two specifically.
Yeah.
Or was it BBC generally? I know the pilot was made for BBC Two.
Who was the producer?
Back then, it was Charlie Hanson.
All right.
Do you know Charlie?
No, I know. No.
You know the name. Yeah.
I know
Charlie
the name,
was the producer. But we're sort of jumping ahead, side because at that time it was just here's a bit of money to make.
Right.
It wasn't like a big. I keep going back to this thing that is genuinely true. I just wanted to be at the time a circuit comic, and I've achieved that. And I was very happy. I was earning good money, but I wasn't also not completely disinterested in telling that if someone comes along and
Right.
I was doing a sketch show at Edinburgh. I must have had one eye perhaps on making a TV show. But if I'm going to be honest, also, it'd be quite nice to do well at Edinburgh because I'd had a bit of a failing with the Mighty Boosh doing well and me doing my stand-up show that wasn't so good. It'd be nice to do something that was better and be sort of more well-received like they were, perhaps, you know. You have master plans all the time. You just sort of do these things, and wouldn't it be good to do a good show at Edinburgh, full stop, you know? Then they see that and they give you a little bit of money to try things and then did the script for not going out. And it's sort of,
You wrote that by yourself?
At the time, I wrote that with Hitchhiker episode. So I think the pilot was with Andrew Collins, who's a writer.
Yeah.
And does bits of TV stuff. And I remember at the time thinking, I think I'm pretty confident in my joke writing abilities, but I've never written a story or a script. Where do I start with that? And I had this theory that I think it was Avalon, who were my management then and still are, were a TV company as well. And they said, well, look, we'll put you together with somebody else. And they said, we've got this guy called Andrew who has written for EastEnders. And I remember thinking, well, EastEnders is half an hour.
Yeah.
Surely sitcom is drama plus jokes, isn't it? If he does the drama and I do the joke, we're laughing, right? But I very quickly learned that it's a unique genre sitcom. It's not drama plus jokes. It's just the only people that can write sitcoms are people who've written sitcoms.
Yeah.
And that's quite a hard thing because where do you find those people? I certainly wasn't one of them.
No.
But I think we did a good enough effort to get the pilot.
Yeah.
We made the pilot. And I remember thinking, look, if it doesn't happen after the pilot, at least I'll have, you know what it's like. You take an idea to a TV person, they read it and they go, I don't think this is right. And they go, it's because you're not seeing it like I'm seeing it. If I can make it and they can see it and then they don't want it, I'll be fine because there's no excuses there. I've done it, you know. So I made it thinking it probably wouldn't get made. And then they said, yeah, we'll have a series. So that was like, wow.
And this is a rarity now, isn't it? So it's a multi-camera. Yeah, well, no, that's also true.
Yeah, it'd be hard to get it now.
But it's filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Live studio audience.
And it's multi-camera.
Multi-proper old cameras, 4 or 5 cameras, all live edited. You know, there's a vision mixer that mixes it for the audience. And to me, I was no way trying to be. Although at the time there was studio sitcoms on, there was a fair few, but not many. There was My Family, there was I think Goodnight Sweetheart with Nick Lyndhurst, but they were still being made. There was still it wasn't that unusual to see a studio sitcom. But there was a general consensus that they were on their way out.
Right, Waitress.
And I've told this story before, but it is true that the night before I made the pilot, there was a documentary on ITV called The Sitcom Is Dead. And it's all about the idea that The Office and the Royal Family, the TV show The Royal Family, had now changed the way television was going to be made. And Victoria Wood herself, who was very big with dinner ladies at the time, is basically on screen saying, forget it. My type of comedy now, certainly studio sitcom, is gone. It won't happen anymore because of this. And I was watching it going, why did anybody tell me this? I didn't know this. I thought I knew it was not as popular, but everyone in the industry seems to be saying how it was over. And they were talking about shows I loved. I loved The Office. I loved The Royal Family.
Yeah.
But I also,
I mean, for those listening who don't know, they're single camera.
They're single
shot
camera,
like a
so
movie, as it were.
Yeah. So there's no audience.
There's no audience.
And it was the start of a sort of, in the way that you guys, with alternative comedy, sort of revolutionised stand-up and indeed comedy in general. These guys were they weren't the first to do it by any means, but this idea of the mockumentary style, literally a mockumentary of The Office, in that they were pretending to make a documentary. And in The Royal Family, although it wasn't a mockumentary, it had a mockumentary vibe. The shaky camera. You put the camera in someone's face and it just wobbles a bit to make you feel like it's real, like it's a real documentary style where this is happening for real right now, you know. And that just became the only way to make comedy. So it was perceived. And I remember thinking, why is it that everyone's telling me that this is the only way to make comedy? But when you see a list of the all-time greatest, or you ask people what's your favourite sitcom?
Yeah.
people always will mention Seinfeld and Frasier. They always seem to be up there, top two. Everyone loves Raymond was still huge in America. These are all traditionally filmed studio-based sitcoms. And I realised what they meant was British sitcoms in studios are not working.
Right.
The American ones are still
Big Bang Theories.
Exactly.
Last
So
great.
the obvious thing I thought was just watch a million American sitcoms and work out what they're getting right.
Right.
We appear to be getting wrong.
Very clever.
Not that I'm saying they're getting wrong, but this is what everyone's telling me.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the two things? And I sat there like a little academic kid with a pen
That's
and
very clever,
and started spotting things. For example, the gag rate. Gag rate in Britain, they come in the door and go, "Hi, how's your day been?" And in America, they come through the door and go, "Hi, how's your day been?" followed by a laugh.
Right.
How can we make "Hi, how's your day been" funny? There's not an ounce of fat on anything they said.
No.
The attempt to get the laugh. And if you put a tick...
one of the reasons for that was in the States that was written because those shows were written by a writer's room of 12,
Absolutely.
15.
It was because of that.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, institutionalised as well.
Right.
But that might be the original reason.
Yeah.
But we just accept things the way they are. Like they accept things the way they are. And they say, no, it's fine to come in and say, "How are you? I'm fine. Do you want a cup of tea? Yeah, I'll make you one." And then a joke.
Right.
Yeah, well, what was all that about? "Oh, that's just a bit of waffle." Well, don't do the waffle then.
Right.
Because you're getting less laughs per minute.
Right.
And if you've got an audience, what's the point of having an audience? If the aim of the show is to make people laugh, just make them laugh as many times as you can. If the aim of the show is to make them laugh and be a bit sad and dramatic, fine. But I'm watching British sitcoms where that's not your aim. Your aim is to just make them laugh, but you're happy with what they call one joke a page.
Yeah.
You used to always say, got to be a joke on every page. A joke on every page just isn't enough when you watch an American sitcom. It's going to be about 6 jokes on a page or 10, And I was spotting other things. I was spotting the way they film it was much wider shots. So you'd see like Kelsey Grammer and Frasier would stand there for ages in a big full body shot and the camera wouldn't be cutting around. And that made me think, I wonder if that's because, even if it's subconsciously, it makes you feel like you're in a theatre watching it.
Right.
And if you're in a theatre, it justifies hearing people laughing. Because when you see a comedy play, no one cares that people around you laughing is part of the enjoyment of watching a comedy play. On telly, everyone's getting angry about the laughs. We don't need to laugh. No, we don't need, Well, why is that? Well, that's because it's intrusive, because it's being filmed close in.
Right.
And now it's 2 things going on at once. Maybe the Americans are doing it deliberate to make you feel like that's what you'd be seeing in a seat. You'd be looking up and seeing a full body, big wide shots, and wrote that down. So trying to do all these little things and try and see what it was we were trying to emulate, I suppose. And and the first few series were quite American in terms of, listen, some people hate my sitcom, but the ratio of gags was there.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't.
And what was the it's a great title, Not Going Out.
Well, that was only, if I'm going to be honest, that was only ever there really because we did a live version of it in a theatre before it ever became a pilot, just to front of 50 people.
That's also very clever, yeah.
Try the material out you would be stand. You'd never go on a TV stand-up show with brand new material. You said yourself, in the young ones, you were doing stuff you'd done before.
Absolutely.
Because you knew it worked.
Yeah.
Why would people go on a sitcom that's gags and untested? I didn't get why that would be. And we've just done the sketch show for 2 years, the one I told you about. I insisted that was in front of an audience first.
Right.
Just test it out like you would before you put it in front of millions, put it in front of
that's what I
50.
do with my radio series.
Just common sense, right?
Yeah.
But you're probably a rarity doing that with your radio show. Some people just go, "I'll just try it out."
Yeah, they do,
that?
particularly, and it's fucking awful.
It's insane, right? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah,
you get 2 chances, not 1 or 3 chances. You can tweak it.
Yeah.
I've never understood that.
No, well, it is. I think you're right. It's a cultural thing as well. It's a lack of seriousness.
It's the way they've always. The amount of times I hear the phrase, "That's just the way it's done."
Yeah.
Whenever they say it in television, "That's the way it's been done." That's the way it's always been done. I would say, yeah, but do you not agree that most telly isn't good enough? That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it might sound awful, but I do think that most jokes I write are good enough. I know that. I write 20 jokes. I try them out. I used to try them every Monday night at my local club. And if one of them made it to the tour, I'd be happy. So what it means is most of my jokes aren't good enough. I accept that. So I'm happy to say most telly's not good enough, or most of anything in the arts isn't good enough. Try and dilute it down to the bits that work.
Absolutely, yeah.
Why would you do that kind of waffle? you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we did.
And what was the sit itself?
So the sit was, so me and in the live version before we tried it, when we tried it out, was that I was married to, or I was going out with Catherine Taylor. She was my girlfriend. I had a mate. It wasn't a great situation, but there was enough of it that I was the slacker who needed to get my life sorted out, and she was she was a more professional person than me. But we just couldn't get our relationship to work, I felt. So I thought, rather than get that to work, let's just change the title to Not Going Out with Each Other. Right. Not change the title, but let's say we're not going out with each other.
Right.
And if we're not going out, then at least we can forget that problem.
Right.
And I think it was Andrew Collins that said that. I think he said, why don't we just call it Not Going Out? Or why don't we, is it the name of a song or something? I can't remember. But it was very casually said. It was like a little post-it note. We'll call it that for now. And it just stuck. So in the pilot, Catherine's in the pilot as my flatmate, who I fancy, but nothing's happened. So if people go, there's no chemistry, fine, we're not going out with each other.
Right.
It was a cheat, really, you know.
Yeah.
And then she became very successful and didn't want to do the series, which completely, I can understand now, 18 years later. But at the time I went, fucking hell, Catherine. But we always remained good mates, and then we got another person in for the series, and that was the start of the sitcom, 2006, I think, yes, for a fest. So
you're on series what now?
We're just writing. I was doing it this morning, actually, series 14.
Wow.
We've had some years off, so that's why it's not, the maths don't add up.
Yeah.
We've been cancelled as well after series 3.
But then a lot by the BBC.
Yeah, the BBC cancelled it after 3 series. And that is why I always remember the story about the aquarium, because that was on series 3.
Right.
When I remember going, because it wasn't just that one incident. That day at the aquarium, there was a different level of recognition.
Right.
And I suddenly thought, my sitcom is sort of working. People are liking the show. I'm not used to being recognised. Right. And it was the same series that it got cancelled. And whilst it was on telly, we were recording the next one, I think it was, I can't remember the order, but after about series 3, it was on telly as we were making it.
Right.
Or something like that. But the bottom line is, during the recording of it, I got a lift home from my manager and he goes, just so you know, I just wanted to tell you, this is it, we've been cancelled that. And I went, I was just in an aquarium and it's working.
Yeah.
I don't get this.
Yeah.
I've had to pretend I'm an expert. I look like an expert in fish because I didn't like the recognition. Why cancel it now? I understand the first 2 being cancelled.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't very internet savvy, but I remember the only time I met Graham Linehan, actually, we did a radio show together and I gave him a lift, and he's very on the ball with stuff like that online.
Yes.
Very online. But this was in the days even pre-Twitter or anything. Right. I remember him saying to me, the reason we got our show back was because there'd been a petition online.
Really?
It had a bit of traction.
Right.
He said, you were one of the first, or something like, he said something like, the first time that a comedy show had gained enough interest online that they wanted to bring back the power of the people worked a bit. Now that might not be true, I don't know, but I remember thinking, God, it's quite powerful, this internet thing, isn't it? Yeah. Of course, nowadays you get asked to sign something every day, don't you? Could you sign this petition?
Yeah.
But it was pre-social media, I suppose you could say.
So somebody organised a petition. I mean, just a petition got going.
I just think some of the people that like watching it also got the thing going. Did anyone connect with our show? Do it? I definitely didn't, because I didn't have any. God, I haven't got any social media now. I certainly didn't have that then.
No. And the BBC actually caved to that, or they.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they caved or.
No, maybe that's the wrong.
I don't know what the
phrase.
They might be right. I like to think they did cave.
Yeah.
Show that people loved it. I do honestly think perhaps that the reason it got cancelled and the reason it got brought back was the same thing. Just a bit knee jerky.
Yeah.
Some dinner party, maybe someone's gone, not a big fan of that show. Oh, you better get rid of that. There.
Yeah, those things did happen.
A year later, I missed that show. Oh, do you? I better bring it. I've realised that even though we criticise the Americans for they have those dials when they make them sit in a room testing.
Yeah.
And if they like it, they turn the dial up, and if they don't, they turn it up. And we sort of mock that as not being very artistic. But I tell you what, sometimes the opposite is worse, where one person's decision in a room or a few people can decide so much when perhaps a little bit of a vote, shall we say, a little bit of the people be asking, basically viewing figures, go with, I personally feel that at the time we were brought back, Last of the Summer Wine was cancelled.
Right.
Now, it was cancelled because the viewing figures were going down, but I think it ended on like 6 million viewing figures.
Jesus, that's gigantic.
I might be wrong about that.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got to factor in it was viewing figures were generally different back in 20 years ago, or 15 years ago. It just probably wasn't cool enough. That's probably the real truth. It wasn't seen as the future. You've got some very old men going down the hill in a bath. How much longer can they do this for?
Yeah.
So they're going, well, let's bring in some new people to the show and keep it going. But I just think it's... Well,
I'm sure you're right. Yeah.
It all felt a bit like classism to me.
Yeah. Well, there's that as well.
These people they're not spent... I know it's not a commercial channel, but it's almost like the non-commercial channels are sometimes trying to keep one eye on the demographics as well. And the demographics of a generally older population watching a programme perhaps has less value to them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that obsession with youth is... I mean, because young people, they're going to get old.
They're going to get old.
You fucking idiots.
It's you next.
Yeah.
It's like that great Jerry Seinfeld line, isn't it? Going, I've had a baby and everybody loves my baby. Everyone see photographs of the baby. I'm showing my baby to everybody. They all want to see it, but let's not forget why the baby's here. The baby is here to replace us. It's true, isn't it? You sometimes forget that. That they will go, and then one day they'll have a baby, and their baby will replace that. And that's what happens in telly.
And don't moan about it. I always say.
Yeah.
So, you're on series 14, 15.
So series 14.
It's on BBC One.
BBC One. And so we've been doing it. Started it in the 30s and now mid-50s. So, I think...
I suppose in an increasingly commercial age, it must be a bit odd now being a big hit on the BBC, really. What's that feel like?
Well, if I'm going to be honest, like everything I do, I don't really feel it's a big hit. I just know it's been on a long time.
But it wouldn't be, honestly.
We're not, in the industry we work in and the people we see at work, at our job, they don't watch studio sitcoms any more than they watch EastEnders or Coronation Street. These shows that some of the biggest shows aren't watched by our industry.
No.
That's what I find.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying we're one of the biggest shows, but we certainly get decent viewing figures. If I'm going to be honest, in the 30, gosh, how long have I been doing this now? So 20 odd years in telly. The only show I've ever felt feels like, my God, this is actually a bit of a hit, or certainly an overnight hit, is the quiz show I do at the moment, where it's ITV the 1%.
Fuck, you've got a daytime quiz. Is it a daytime quiz show?
It's a Saturday night show.
Saturday night. I'm sorry.
But that was sort of instant. Everything else I've been on seems to have taken years,
Right.
But that was sort of landed somehow instantly as a show that, you only go by what people say to you in the street.
Yeah.
I love what I like, and then suddenly that becomes, I love watching the 1% Club, I love the show, and I suddenly thought, I'm not used to that instant thing. It's not going out. It took years before anyone could even remember the name of it. And even now, after, Would I Lie to You has been hugely successful for the people that make it, for us, the BBC. But it took quite a few years before people stopped saying, oh, I quite like the show about the truths, and they don't remember the name of it, So I wasn't used to that instant recognition of a show, perhaps, the 1% Club.
Right.
But yeah, it's...
So do you go out live as well, then? Do you do live stand-up?
Well, I haven't... I used to do a lot, yeah. I used to try and tour and could, but I haven't actually done a proper stand-up tour for about 7 or 8 years now.
Right.
And it bugs me a bit because, I don't know, when you reach your mid-50s, you start going, am I ever going to go back on the road? And it is what I started doing. I was a stand-up, all I wanted to do was be a stand-up on the circuit.
Well, I mean, what size venues were you playing when you landed 7 years ago?
Well, I would do all kind of range, I'd start off in the art centres to build up material, but I suppose the big ones were like the 3000s and stuff like that. But It was at a time when, or still is, a lot of comedians chose to do the arenas.
I could never. I mean, I know that might make me sound. I mean, there is a limit. I can't understand why you. I can understand why you would do that because you make a fuck ton of money. But as a comic, I think that's
for me, it was
beyond the pale.
I talk a lot to the audience, certainly at the end of the show.
Yeah,
and I just couldn't ever get my head around how you would talk to an audience in an arena, and so personally, I chose to do, a few nights in a reasonably big theatre rather than trying to do an arena, because then
you're still making. I mean, you're paying like.
I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think the economics are much different. If you do, you just do a lot more nights. That's the difference. So you're away from home more. Now, I can't lie. As I've got older, even though would it be as good? The sort of family life's more important, but so I don't know if I've got another 130 dates in me. No, I did try it one night. I said I'll do one night in an arena and test it, see what it feels like.
All right.
I pushed it already in the city. I've done quite a few nights in the city, so to try and sell another 15,000 in one night of an arena was pushing it. But we still maybe half filled it or something. Right. We got 6,000 or 7,000.
This was a show that you so it was well worked. So you weren't doing your
I was banging out every night. Sometimes on matinee as well if I go up to Glasgow and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the only way for me to consider it is to try and bring in a camera. So you talk to someone in the front row, the camera's on them, and you actually pick them up and see them. It's even more intimate. See, this is what I did find, if I'm going to be honest. You play 1,000-seater or 1,500. It's quite intimate in the what you call the proscenium.
Yeah.
With the little boxes and all that.
Yeah.
You go up to about 3,000, like the Hammersmith Apollo, whatever it's called now, the Eventing Apollo.
Yeah.
And it's sort of too big for stand up to talk to the audience. You go a bit bigger to an arena and put the screens up.
Right.
It becomes a bit more intimate again because your face is on a big screen.
Right.
You can't justify a big screen in the Hammersmith Apollo, but you have to have one in an arena.
Right.
Now, obviously, it's nowhere near as intimate as that 1,500 seats.
No, I mean, the biggest I've played would be like Liverpool Empire, which I think is around about 3,000.
That's an intimate.
It's intimate. It's a good. Yeah.
I don't know, the way it's shaped or something.
Yeah, Edinburgh Playhouse is the same. It's 3,000.
Doable, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But you can get 2,000 or 1,500 that isn't.
Yeah.
It suddenly feels massive.
Yeah.
I love the names they give them, like the St. Albans Arena. You played that?
No.
I think that'd be the first time it's pushing in the word arena. You can't just slap the word arena on the end of anything, But there are some that it's not always about the size, but it's a good rule of thumb, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it becomes just too big,
Yeah.
But it's fair to say that some acts do suit. And I don't know, I'm tempted if I did it again, because I'm not sure if I've got 150 nights in there.
That's an awful. I mean, I've never done a tour of more than about 30 dates.
That's probably the way to do it, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
But I might be exaggerating. I'm also counting those little warm-up gigs in clubs and stuff.
Yeah.
But actually proper dates, I've definitely done 100. And every 7 years is enough for me, I think. It's like being at home.
Yeah.
It's a greenhouse, I love it. You've been in a greenhouse and you get statistics, you've had it, you're not going the road again.
You don't think you ever will? No. You go on the
I've dipped it. So
and you do a live show of it's. You're not allowed. You do a live show with.
I would have liked it.
Well,
sorry,
you're not cut.
For legal reasons, I should change that sentence.
But then you and David Mitchell and Rob.
I love your show. Hasn't got an end.
Yeah.
We do a live show with me, David, and Rob from Would I Lie to You.
Yeah. And
then the original idea was, wouldn't it be great to tour Would I Lie to You? I had the idea because my auntie, I'll rephrase that, someone I know, said to me, I saw the greatest show ever, greatest comedy show I've ever seen. I went, oh yeah, what was that? She said, Question of Sport on the live tour. She's a slightly elderly lady.
Yeah.
Question of Sport's been on for years, it's great.
Yeah.
But I did say to David and Rob, surely we can do at least as well as Matt Dawson and Phil Tufnell on a live tour.
You'd like to think
they're
so,
sportsmen.
yeah.
We are professional comedians. Surely we should be able to do at least as well.
Yeah.
And even push all up and say maybe even better. Who knows? So why don't we tour? Would I lie to you? So we perform to 400 people a night for 3 hours. I guess that is
3 hours.
It's a good 2.5, 3 hours.
Oh, in the
Lots of
TV show,
in the TV show.
Yeah.
we tour it, But then we found that it was easier to just. I don't think there was at first the will from other people involved to perhaps tour it. It's a lot of hard work to come up with all these research for truths and lies and stuff. So why don't we just create something? So we just created a different thing. So that I liked performing as a tour. But again, like you just said, maybe 20, 30 dates we did. And also going back to what I said before, I can look to my left and there's someone on stage.
Yeah.
I always like the camaraderie of that.
Yeah.
I think it perhaps goes back to the days of having a proper job. Quite like the canteen. You know what I mean? I quite like the coffee breaks.
Yeah.
That's what I like about the sitcom. It's a 9 to 5 job, actually. Going at 10 in the morning, 9 to 10, come home at 5, Monday to Thursday, and then Friday go to the studio and record it in front of an audience. There's a feeling of a normal job.
Right.
Sounds awful saying this clocking in, but you know the clocking in days.
Yes.
Get your mates, can you clock me in? I'm late.
Yeah,
all that.
That was usually me.
That regularity that you perhaps don't get as a stand-up on the circuit. You got weird hours as a stand-up, haven't you? You're all over this shop. One day you're in Aberdeen, the next week you're in Dorking, 20 minutes from your house. It's so weird. What about you? Are you touring again?
No, well, I was 2/3 the way through a kind of comeback tour in 2020 when COVID struck, and I haven't.
You didn't go back and do the remaining dates, though?
No, I cancelled them in the end. I thought I didn't feel up.
When you say comeback tour, how long would the gap been?
17 years.
That's it.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that feel like to have that time off and go back?
It was fantastic, really. Whoa, God! I mean, that wasn't that
you did
tour.
all the little warm-ups first. You did just straight out.
No, the way it went. I stopped doing stand-up in 1996 in Perth, Western Australia. Was my last stand-up gig as that guy in the tight suit.
Right.
And I realised that guy.
That went, did it?
I'd come to the end of all that, and then I saw myself as a writer for like the next 20 years. What I did was that I did book readings and stuff, and I'd do a Q&A, and I would talk about my own life.
Being interviewed or just you on stage?
Just me on stage. Sometimes interviewed.
So it's not stand-up as such, but it's still a version.
It's a live thing, yeah. And from that came, I would start to talk about my own life, really, which I could never do as the guy in the suit, really, because he was a character.
Yeah.
So and then in 2011, Stuart Lee asked me to do a sort of weird show. He was curating at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, and I just took all these bits I've been doing in the Q&A at the book readings and made it into stand-up. And that made me think, fuck, I can do stand-up, but in a completely different way. Yeah. Completely different.
Because you were bored with that version.
I was more than bored. I was very unhappy with it. I was really extremely unhappy with that whole version. And so, I just started doing it again. Really. So 2011, and then I did Edinburgh in 2013, and did a 12-week run of the Soho Theatre, and then so the stand-up tour was 2020. I'd just done 5 nights at Liverpool, and then COVID struck.
COVID's over. Are you?
I can't. I'm 71 now, so I mean it's physically.
You want to go back to the tight suit man again? I want to see the tight suit man live. Do for me and my missus.
I don't know what he would be like now. I don't know. I can't. I mean, we had a big comeback tour booked in with the McIntyres, playing the 2,000 seaters, 3,000 seaters, and 2,000 seaters. And I just couldn't. I don't know. I just couldn't face it. Really. I'd worked the material live. It was fucking killing.
Right.
And I just thought, it's just not there anymore.
I'm 55, and I struggle a bit to be away from home, to be on the road. I don't know. I suppose I don't know. For me, stand-up's a bit. What's the phrase? I don't know. It's seen as the purest form of comedy, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I think comedians are quite snobby about it, including myself. I think because you spend your life being told it's the hardest thing you can ever do. You're so brave. I think you can start believing it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's sort of Jesus-like. When in fact, I remember Ivor Dunbean, is that Ivor?
Yeah.
He'd say to me one day, the greatest secret that only comedians know. It's just how easy it is to entertain people for 20 minutes. Which I'm sure you
have to have the gift.
Of course you do.
You have to. But if you've got that, if that's what you can do, that's what you can do.
It's absolutely true, but it's not as easy as he met. And he's only joking when he says
yeah.
But on a barometer of that to Jesus-like, it's closer to the easier than people know than it is to be Jesus. Yeah. And I think sometimes people do start believing. And I say people, I mean me, perhaps I've started to be, oh my God, this is the hardest thing in the world to do, so I must concentrate on this because this is such a unique gift to be able to do. But actually, it's not that, to me, why I personally got involved in it was like I said before, having a laugh with my mate. What's the nearest thing to having a laugh with your mates? What it isn't is standing up and being the only one around the table that's talking as they're all listening.
Yeah.
If it was, then great, I'll try and recreate that and become a stand-up comedian. But it's the interaction, the chat, and that. What's the nearest I can get to creating that? And so I just haven't. I dipped back in. I hosted the Royal Variety Show a couple of years ago. I thought I can't go on there rusty, so I better start going back to the clubs again. And I went back to the clubs and thinking it'd be re-energising. And go, oh my God, I've missed this. And I sort of didn't. I sort of liked it, but not enough to go up to Scotland for a week and miss my family. That sort of,
Yeah.
It's like being at home while I watch a match of the day.
Do you think? I mean, what is your just to wrap up? Really, where now for you? What is?
Well, I've got things sort of contracted in for the first time in years where I know what I'm doing for a couple of years. So I know that the quiz show's happening. I know my sitcom is happening in the future, and Would I Lie to You is happening for at least another couple of series. So for the next couple of years. Yeah, I'm happy with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I always think when it all stops, I'll get back into the stand-up,
I mean, we've only met a couple of times. I mean, your character, your nature comes through in your comedy, I think, doesn't it? That, there's not that raving Russell Brand-like insanity in you.
There isn't, it's fair to say that I've always felt that, some people have said it's better than sex. They'll say that about anything. If you're a footballer, scoring a goal is better than sex.
Yeah.
If you're a comedian, getting the laugh is better than sex.
Yeah.
And I've heard people talk about it. Nothing is, when you do that joke and everyone's like, nothing in the world will beat that feeling. And I've always felt like, am I doing it wrong then? Because I like it. I think it's great. But it's not so good that it consumes me. It's what I love is the challenge of writing a joke. I think that's really hard, to write something that's funny. Or even say something funny, conversation that, it's quite hard sometimes. And so to be able to think of something on your computer that you go out that night and try it out, and it works, nothing beats that. To the point where, in fact, I think I heard Diane Morgan on your show, on this, say the same thing. I was listening to thinking, that's what I'm like.
Right.
When you go, once I've proven that it worked, I've done it. I've done the challenge now. The hard bit's been done, all the excitement has been done. To say it another 50 times, and I remember now, it's all coming back to me. You said to Diane, I don't get that. If it works, you keep doing it. And doing it.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I'm like her. I don't get your...
Yeah, when she's like you, in a sense.
Once I've done the challenge of does this work, that's for me is the joy. The writing, the creative side, rather than the performing side, is probably more slightly tops it. I see myself as more of a writer than a performer, I suppose, if that's the right word. I don't know. I would have liked to use performing, so I see that as more like being with my mates in the pub.
Well, it certainly has that vibe.
I just I love this job. Best job I've ever had. Of course it is. It's the only one that's paid more than £100 a week. But it's not everything, is it? It's not.
I think you're very rare saying that.
Well, maybe I'm deluded and it's more consuming than I think it is. I don't know. Maybe my wife's going to listen to this and go, "What the bloke I know in the house is going, is this funny?" If I say, But to be fair, I don't do that.
Yeah.
I used to read my scripts to her.
Yeah.
Is this any good? But no, it's all, well, we've got 3 kids and 2 cats and 2 dogs and loads of goldfish, and we just don't have a minute. We just, the house is full of life and things to do. We've got 3 teenagers who need sorting out.
Right. I hate you.
So
I hate your happiness.
I'm not happy. I think but you've got to remember that when you say you hate my happiness, it's a bit like when people say to me, "You're one of the hardest working comedians," and I think that says more about comedians than it does about. I think you telling me I'm happy says a lot more about all the other comics.
Right.
I think there's a disproportionate amount of in all of the arts
Dysfunction, yes.
But when you're stood there on your own doing it, it's. I mean, being an actor can turn you into a nightmare, but being a stand-up can turn you into a much bigger nightmare.
Absolutely,
because you are getting all the glory, and all the stress, and all the failings. Yeah. It's all on you, isn't it?
I must say, I mean, it was the happiest. I mean, I think when I was talking about the guy in the suit, it's because I had a lot of that. What you're talking about, insanity, and what was wonderful about
you refer to him as the guy in the suit, like it is.
Yeah, he's not me. He's some other. Yeah, it's a demon. Well, yeah.
It's interesting because I had a phrase I was quite proud of in the autobiography that fits that, which was the difference between actors and comedian typifying is that actors pretend to be someone else.
Yeah,
go on stage and pretend to be someone else, but comedians go on stage and pretend to be themselves.
Yes,
they're not being themselves, they're pretending to be themselves. And that's the fundamental difference.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example. Because I would have, until you just said that, if you'd have said to me, yeah, it's just an extension of me and that's just me. The fact that you're referring to him as somebody else.
Well, he had aspects of me, but I think it was also, I had that thing where I had to be, and what I loved about going back to it in like 2011, 2012 was that, in the 90s, I had to be, if I did a benefit, I had to be the funniest. I had to smash it. Everybody else had to be destroyed, you know. I had to be the funniest, and somewhere in the intervening those 17 years, I lost that. And I was so glad that I'd lost it. Because
I'll tell you what it's worth. You were the funniest.
Well, that's also true.
It might come at a price, but you
I was,
I know. I mean, look, like everybody in the school playgrounds, we loved Rick and we were doing impressions of it. But you coming on, there's something changed when you came on where it felt like it's almost like you were in a different show when you came on. Well, you literally were because you were doing stand up and talking down the lens sometimes. But you were also the landlord, so you were doing a bit of everything. But that series of stuff for me is as good as anything I've said on TV. Genuinely.
Yeah.
It really
I don't know why it doesn't get repeated, really. It's just
not that era of comedy. Because it was so, I suppose, people say to me it's a bit of what you do is a bit old school and a bit modern or whatever.
Yeah.
But in a way, that was sort of, there was sketches, there was a bit of stand-up, there was a bit of variety. Variety is often
singing, dancing,
a bit of everything. Right?
Yeah.
Which is just, you don't really see as much of that on TV anymore. Everything's very of a thing now.
Yeah. No, stuff was, it pissed me off a bit that it's not.
Why isn't it repeated?
It's something, I don't know. It's either because I'm so fantastic that people will acknowledge it. I'm such a problem. I'm such a threat.
But you can't, if you're a problem and a threat, you've made it now. They don't even have to deal with you. They just press play.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be like a licensing. I don't know why it's not.
Is it out? Is it on your YouTube channel?
It's some people have pirated it. It's on YouTube.
But who made it? Who's got the rights?
BBC.
Is it in house?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a problem.
On your YouTube channel, so if you watch it again.
Yeah. All right.
Great. Stuff like gold and stuff. There's so many places to repeat stuff.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I think? I think it's what the classic. When you don't know the answer to something in this mental world of television, it's often just because someone will listen to this and go, "Oh yeah, we should put that on." Sometimes they just don't think, do they?
No.
And we all think this for other.
Partly because I don't sort of fit in a way to any established narrative. I think that the business has a slight problem with how to categorize me. And so my stuff gets a bit ignored because of that, really. Because you can't say I'm this, you can't say I'm that. I'm this weird kind of hybrid of the, anti-establishment, but I'm also very old school showbiz in many ways. And
got the suit, but you're also...
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's on the suit, I guess. Alternative probably we associate with t-shirts, jeans, and with a suit at the time. It doesn't quite fit. So does it quite fit? Maybe that's
the bad. Yeah, it doesn't quite fit.
The suit, it doesn't quite fit. Well, that's great. I think that's why you were brilliant. Are brilliant. I think it's the fact you don't
I'm glad
That is what it is.
Yeah.
The not fitting is what it is, right?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
I want that suit to fit.
Yeah, yeah. It's true, yeah. No, it is. I mean, that's a very good way of summing it up, really. I think now that we're now talking about me, probably we said thank you, Lee Mack, very much.
Thank you, Alexei. It's been an honour and a pleasure, and I look forward to receiving the cheque.
You can fuck off. Well, yeah, that was, I mean, as I said in the bit, really, we ended up talking about how great I am, which you can't, and listen, people, that's just Lee Mack telling you how great I am, not just me repeatedly telling you how great I am, which obviously I do because it's my podcast, but there's somebody else, who's a family-friendly entertainer, but sees the extraordinary professional innovation that I brought and I'm still bringing to this field. And you're lucky to have me, really. You could do another plea for money, couldn't we, really, there? Say it again.
If you can't afford to, obviously, no pressure, man. Don't feel guilty. But if you can afford a few quid every month, the price of a cup of coffee, like they say, buy us a coffee a month or a beer a month or what's a £10 thing that people buy?
What's
your Netflix subscription?
Yeah.
Except you're not giving to the corporate machine. You're giving to this.
Such a shit movie on Netflix at the moment. The Union with Halle Berry and Mark Wahlberg. Oh, it's so shit in so many different ways.
As Eminem said, Mark Wahlberg is a small turd. I've not heard of The Union.
Yeah.
Halle Berry used to be a star who was only in top grade stuff. And what happened?
Yeah.
The Union.
Terrible.
Mm-hmm.
As is the League of Terrible.
Oh,
Gentlemen.
I saw that. The Guy Ritchie's a piece of shit. But
is that Guy Ritchie? Is it another Guy Ritchie?
Yeah,
film?
The League of Ungentlemanly. Manly. It's just it wants to be. In.
He wants to be Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, what's it in Something Bastards?
Really, Quentin Tarantino's a shitbag himself, but I mean, it's
he is.
Except he did at least make My Friend Christoph famous.
Yeah,
but
that film desperately wants to be Inglourious Bastards.
Exactly,
Nazi hunting, and
that just shooting people in the head for kind of comic effect it's really morally repulsive and
it's gross.
Yeah,
it's just shallow and unfunny.
Yeah.
I watched it late one night. I didn't smirk the whole time once.
It's awful. Beyond belief.
But it's got technically filmic, cinematically, it looks nice, which is kind of the biggest, it's the biggest lie of all. It's a con. It feels like I was being conned into carrying on watching.
Yeah, because the other thing it does is there's colorblind casting as well. That one of the lead heroes is a black guy. But it just all makes it worse. I think.
He was actually all right, though. I liked him.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah, I'd like to see him in something good rather than something evil and terrible.
No, it's a pathetic film.
Anyway, we're getting quite a backlog, aren't we? We're sitting on. I don't know if Lenny's getting frustrated. That's a funny discussion about me advertising Premiere in. I don't know if we've got Lenny in the can, and next we're going to put out Andy Beckett, aren't we? Really?
Correct. So we're sandwiching between two comedy icons.
Yeah.
Some politics for y'all.
Yeah.
Andy Beckett wrote a really interesting book. Maybe you could give the audience some homework and get them to read the book.
His book. Yeah, The Searchers. I was going to mention. I never mentioned to Andy Beckett that I didn't. Because if you do these podcasts, they will send you a free book, the publishers. But I'd actually bought.
You'd bought
his book of my own accord before, so I didn't have to.
And you read the book before the interview. So if our listeners want to be more prepared for next week, whenever it comes out, the next episode, By the Searchers by Andy Beckett.
Yeah.
Fascinating book about the history of the kind of rebels of the Labour Party, really. It's Ben, Corbyn,
Abbott. Ken Livingstone,
and written in a kind of really easily digestible manner, right? And it covers psychology and history. politics, obviously.
Yeah.
So have a read of that if you'd like to be more prepared for next episode.
Yeah.
Although the homework is not mandatory.
No. Maybe you could. Strangers on a Train is finished on Radio 4 now. Maybe you could bombard your BBC with requests for another Series 4. Mobilise my army of fans.
Right to points of view.
Yeah. Yeah, send a letter to Points of View.
That show's so popular. A lot of people post about it online. I was on that train. Oh, I wish he talked to me. I ride that train every day.
Oh, really? Well, we're waiting for them to commission another series. So
it will come, won't it? What's next, though? You're going to do one on a plane?
No, that's all. It's one of the frustrating things. We're making this podcast getting longer, but it's sort of frustrating in a sense, but sort of all you can do is what that show is. You can't make a book out of it.
Yeah.
You can't do it on telly. You can't change the format in any way at all, really. All you can, the beauty, I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that you get on a train and talk to people, and there's nothing else you can do. It's got no, as far as because God knows we've thought about it, but it's got no areas where you could kind of expand the franchise,
next series, you should try to interview the train driver if you can.
We did. We have done we interviewed the guy, the driver from Glasgow, going down south. So we have done that. Really,
well, I just showed my ass. Then I don't really.
That you haven't listened to. Sorry, I don't. No, it's.
You know how
difficult because you don't want to distract them, really.
Yeah, of course. You know how Lee Mack was saying how they used to reenact the young ones in the playground.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a playground out there now where there's two kids reenacting an interview from strangers on the plane, strangers on the train? You be the lady who's going to visit her cousin in Doncaster. And I'll be Alexei. They're acting it out.
Yeah. I guess I don't know how many young people listen to Radio 4, but let's hope let's hope. Esperemos.
All right, then. Thanks for listening, listeners.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye. See you soon. Bye-bye. You've been listening to the Alexei podcast. This show is produced and edited by Talal Karkuti. Music by Tarbush Records. Thanks to Audio Boom for hosting us. Please keep your emails coming in at alexeisaylepodcast@gmail.com. Goodbye.